right. All of you are in grade 5? Okay, so who has never been to the campus before? All right, so what is exciting about being on this campus? One boy right in front, tell me your name. Tell me your name. Come on, tell me. Don't be shy.
Kelly, I hear you.
You feel a bit nervous? Come on.
Yes, yes, I don't start sharing. See her?
Yeah, I'm telling you what you like. What is the part of the one?
Back at it.
Okay, yeah, separate man. What's your name? Okay, come on, good job. You have bright eyes. You see that? Tell me what you love.
Also, she's pink.
The neatness. You saw neatness on campus? Okay. With God, everything is arranged. You know it's arrangement. So what you want to do? A doctor. So he's already see the eye, the lens is already applied. Very nice. So that's what you like. Yes, there's a hand here. Thank you very much. Now coming to you. Yes. Come on, tell me. Yes. And the greenery. And the greenery. Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah, great fine. Great fine. Thank you. And yes. Come on, tell us. And you are? Lewis-Fokum? I'm good. All right. I can pronounce it any way she said.
That's the language that has been the recording, and if there are any questions, then she will.
Come on, tell them. Tell them.
Well, the campus is big and all the people here are nice, and I actually want to come to this university.
And which faculty, ma'am? What faculty are you thinking? Well, what are you wanting to study when you grow up? Law. Okay, so she's faculty of law. Okay, no problem. This is faculty of humanities and education, but it and law are closely aligned. A lot of people start out in humanities and education or full of education, and they eventually go to do law. Yes, I see a hand. Last hand, come, sir. Come and tell me. See sharp haircut? All right. What's it saying? Come, Mr. Saran. Don't know the name now for the former president of the United States. They tell you that all the time? Yes, to tell us what you like about it now. Kindness. Your experience, kindness. Very nice. Thank you, and we like that. Thanks a lot. We're looking forward to the program. Yes? And we are looking forward to hearing from all of you. You have your hand up as well? Okay, last. Oh, stop. I can't take everybody. Okay, if there are opportunities, then I will. Thank you. O'Brien Price. Yes, sir. Scroll across the lot. Yes, and you like that. The sprawl and greenery and cleanliness and everything also. Thank you very much, sir. Have a good brother. Thank you. So I know the program hasn't yet. I can start now. Okay. So I started, but informally, and it was very important to welcome the young people, the next generation who will be here on this campus. Thank you, Winwood Road Primary. Thank you for being here. We look forward to having you a little bit later in the program. Are your teachers here with you? Shorts, man, point them out. All of these teachers, tell me her name. With who? Miss Bennett? Mrs. Grant Bennett ahead. Mr. Palmer? Yes. And those two, Mrs. Grant Bennett and Mr. Palmer. Welcome. And let me acknowledge the head of the School of Education, Dr. Marcia Rainford. I see other faculty members. I see Professor Paulette Ramsey, who is here. I see the head of the, or certainly the Mrs. Christine Randall, Miss Christine Randall, Director of the University of the West Indies Press. I didn't realize that you had gone over to the UWI Press, Ms. Randall. Welcome. I didn't realize, I don't know. And I see two distinguished professors, Emeritus Professor Maureen Warner Lewis and Professor Rupert Lewis. Welcome. I know you've come to support your daughter, Yewande, who is one of the authors. And I want to welcome especially the authors, to congratulate them. I see Dr. Fokum at the back, again coming to support, head of the Department of Computing and husband of one of the authors, Dr. Lewis-Fokum. And let me just acknowledge all the other members of the School of Education, Faculty of Humanities and Education, and generally the campus library, and also other faculties on campus. In terms of my few brief opening remarks, I just want to say that as we close out the celebration of Parent Month, which is this month, November, here we are to celebrate the launch of another book. This one, Each One, Teach One. Yes? Parental involvement and family engagement in Jamaica's education system. A very important addition to all of the work that some of us have been engaged with and others of you have also been engaged with. I want to say, if I were to just imprint a few of my own, my own thoughts. Nearly 20 years ago, and I hope I'm not stealing, just forgive me, I'm not stealing any author's thunder or anything. But just to say that nearly 20 years ago, I had the good fortune to have been asked by the Planning Institute of Jamaica and UNICEF to develop a parenting special module for the Jamaica Survey of Living Conditions. And it was fielded in 2004, what we call JSLT. It was an eye-opener for me, the findings. You know why? Not all parents felt fulfilled. Not all parents enjoyed parenting. I just took it for granted that people enjoy parenting, and I was stunned that you had a sizable percentage who did not enjoy parenting. And a large percentage were moderately and highly stressed. And what we found was that those stress levels influence the level of interaction with the children, and also the discipline and the punishment which was meted out to the children. Fathers were associated with fun and play. That's what we found as well. You know, that working paper, we were told, went on, and I did this with Professor Pat Anderson, retired. That working paper, which we did, went on to help inform the establishment of the National Parent Support Commission. At least that's what the UNICEF resident representative at the time told us. Fast forward 14 years later, after nearly 10 years of making a case for a time use module in the Jamaica Survey of Living Conditions, we were able to field in 2018 a special time use module. What did we find? Any surprises? No real surprises. women spent 2.23 times more than men engaged in unpaid care and domestic work. And that includes helping with homework and the care and nurture of children. They had less time for leisure. The unpaid care and domestic work constrained their engagement in paid work. When they were engaged in paid work, then unpaid care and domestic work responsibilities weren't necessarily reduced. So for the women who worked for pay, they had the same burden of unpaid care and domestic work to carry, and so they were doubly burdened. I want to acknowledge, though, that there were fathers who were involved in the supervision of homework, etc. It is within that context and background that I read parts of this book and can say how much it is such an important addition and resource for us in Jamaica, and I'd say the wider Caribbean region. And so I want to commend the editors and the authors for attempting to close what you all acknowledge as the cultural and contextual gap in the literature about parental involvement and family engagement in their children's schooling and education. And I noted how much class, socioeconomic status played a big role in some of the interpretations in the book. So again, I want us to see this occasion as a celebration of the maybe new discoveries, the reinforcement of things which we had already known, and certainly shining the area, the spotlight, as Professor Barry Shavans of blessed memory would say, shining that spotlight into areas that need further work. So let us congratulate Dr. Saran Stewart, Sharline Cole, and Yewande Lewis-Fokum. And I think they are our applause, and also to the many other authors who authored and co-authored the other chapters. So having said this, by way of my welcome, and let me just say that I apologize for arriving late. I was in campus appointments committee presenting the faculty's cases, and today was my day. And so I could not leave until all cases were heard, and we finished at about 10 minutes to 5, and I just had to rush. So I apologize for arriving late and maybe seeming to be a little bit disheveled at the beginning. So let me invite at this time Dr. Therese Ferguson-Murray to please lead us in prayer. Thank you.
Let's go to God in prayer. Heavenly Father, we come before you now in awe and reverence, and we come praising you for your glory, your majesty, your power, and your might. We praise you because you are God and because you are good. We come thanking you for this day, for life, breath, health, and strength, and for this moment where we come together to celebrate the launch of this text focused on parental involvement and family engagement in Jamaica's education system. Father, your word says in Proverbs 22, verse 8, start children off in the way they should go, and even when they are old, they will not turn from it. Scripture highlights the important role that parents play in the rearing and education of their children in all aspects. Father, we thank you for this book, which acknowledges the significant role of parents in their children's schooling and education. We thank you for the editors, the authors, the publisher, and all who have made the realization of this text a possibility. We pray your blessing upon them. As it is launched today, we pray that this text, the theoretical discussions and empirical research findings, will be used as a basis for decision and policy making and will influence practice in our schools. We pray for a successful and meaningful launch event as well, with meaningful dialogue and reflections from all those involved. At the end of the day, may it all bring glory to you and be meaningful for education in Jamaica. In your son's name we pray. Amen.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ferguson Murray. I will now invite to bring greetings. I don't see Dean Cohen, but I left her at campus appointments. So when I ran out at 10:55, she was still there because we had not yet completed all the hearings. So I will invite Dr. Marcia Rainford, who will be followed by Ms. Christine Randall, Director of the University of the West Indies. So Dr. Marcia Rainford is Director of the School of Education, Faculty of Humanities and Education. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ricketts. And thank you so much for identifying so many groups of persons. And it's really a pleasure for me to look down and see so many of you. I want to also add to her list that we have some parents, so we have one set of parents already, the Lewises, and we also have Dr. Cole's mother over there, seated to the extreme left right there, about third row down. And I want to acknowledge past head of School of Education, Dr. Professor Beverly Bryan, who is here in support of her mentees, I'm sure, but only because she loves to gather with us in the room. So I want to just welcome you all, as well as Dr. Yewande Williams, who is a senior education officer. I'm sure there's more to it than that from the Ministry of Education, but thank you very much, Dr. Williams, for coming here this afternoon. I want to just say how pleased I am to be here and to add my congratulations to the persons who are responsible for this book. Since I became head of school in 2019, this marks the 6th book launch I'm doing for members of staff from the School of Education. And I want to say that one person did not launch her book, and I am sure that next year, if we're all alive, we'll have another launch. So that means you're the 8 publications of this, caliber coming out of the school. 2 of them were from previous heads who had retired, had started the work while they were here. I say that because it speaks to the fact that as a School of Education, we're certainly taking seriously our responsibility to contribute the scholarship to the areas that really need highlighting, and certainly the business of parenting is one such. I want to say as well that what I particularly like about being here this afternoon is the fact that this represents a collaboration of efforts that involves so many staff members and past staff members from the School of Education. I don't know if you know, but Yewande, Sharline, and Yewande and Sharline are currently members of the school, they're members of staff. Saran is a past staff member of the School of Education. And if you haven't had a chance to buy your book as yet, you will find that there are several authors who are also members of staff. So we have Zoe, we have, let me give you their public titles. Dr. Zoe Kingley-Clark, Dr. Lois George, Shane Haynes Brown, Dr. Cameron Roof, who is not here, and of course, Yewande and others have also written in this book. So it's a collaborative effort, but it's a collaborative effort that involves so many members of staff from the school. And they have brought together their disciplinary interests to make this publication one that is rich, and I'm sure we're all going to find very, very useful. And I want to say finally that I want to congratulate them for looking at this very important area, this area of parenting. And I think more and more we realize how difficult it is for teachers to function in the classrooms. And I think because that missing link with home and school has not been strengthened in the ways that it should be. And I am hoping that this publication will help us to understand some of the issues that are involved and will enable us as a society, as a people, to do better in that regard. And so I want to congratulate my colleagues for the work that they have done. I want to thank them for continuing to increase the publication output of the School of Education. They know that they have my support. I'm very proud of the work that they are doing. And I want to just say, I'm expecting much more. One of my friends would always say, I am on the decrease while you're on the increase. So I am now saying that I'm on the decrease, I'm in the partial loan. I've been telling the Zoya recently. So I'm happy to see that so many of you have continued to work and to work together, because there's so much to be done, so much more that we can do if we work together. Congratulations. Thank you, Yewande. All the very best, and a good launch, I'm sure we will have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rainford. I see Professor Monty walking in. She's coming from the same place I was at and ran out. So have you left Professor Cohenberg? Did you leave her? She's on her way. Okay. Before I invite Ms. Randall, there was a disclaimer which I omitted to read at the very beginning. And it's important for me to read because the event is being live streamed. So the disclaimer reads as follows. All events taking place in this venue may be photographed, video recorded, rebroadcast, or live streamed for marketing, social media, and media purposes. By attending this event, you grant the UWI Press permission to use and publish any recorded material. Thank you for listening. So at this point, I will invite Ms. Randall, Director of the UWI Press, to bring her greetings.
Editors and authors, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, colleagues, esteemed guests, all. It is serendipitous that I've been invited to greet you this afternoon. It was in this very space and at the invitation of the School of Education that I made my first public remarks as Director of the Press in March of this year. I joined in January. Coming up on 1 year since I stepped into the role, it is once again a pleasure to collaborate with you to present yet another publication to emanate from members of the School of Education. Indeed, the press continues to receive submissions in the field of education and currently has in progress 3 separate projects addressing divergent issues in education and family life. So the collaboration between the press and the School of Education has been an enduring and continuing one, and for that we are truly appreciated. So Dr. Rainford, we meet in this space again. But there is much more in store for 2024. On press is a highly anticipated work on niche tourism in the Caribbean, and in progress are works on C.L.R. James, Walter Rodney, and Kamau Brathwaite. These are in addition to projects in literature, sociology, and culture, which are also underway, as well as our robust journals portfolio. So I'm deliberately being vague on the project titles and scope of these works because I want you to Follow Yewande on social media, download our app, visit our website, or better yet, visit our office here on the Mona campus. It has been a baptism by fire, and the learning curve has been steep, but it has been cushioned by the confidence our authors repose in the press. In response, the press continues to abide by the very best principles of scholarly and academic publishing, maintaining strict proposal consideration and peer review protocols, and editorial and production rigor, thereby securing the integrity of the press and our authors' work, and indeed the highly valued elevated stature of Yewande in the international university press community and the global marketplace. Our author care and aftercare, so to speak, also remains a top priority, as evidenced by the support of our sales and marketing team here this evening. Their work is usually unheralded, but it is the sales and marketing team that ensure the high visibility of our publications, the ROI to our authors, responsiveness to concerns, and of course, the continuing sales of our works. I'm mindful of the very engaging program we have on this evening. So with that, I wish you a pleasant rest of the event and remind you to visit the press, especially next month. If you've been following what's happening, you'll understand why, especially next month, which starts tomorrow. I'll be looking out for you. Thank you.
Very much, Ms. Granville. So we are, if you're following your program, the next item would be the authors discussion panel 1. However, you would appreciate that we have these grade 5 students with us. Are all of you grade 5? Some are what, grade 4, 5, and 6. And they have had a long day already in school, so we need to bring them up on the program. So we will now invite all of you brave people who spoke to us so beautifully earlier. Let us welcome Windward Road Primary School performing their musical presentation. Give them another round of applause. So let me see if y'all remember what you said. What you said? Who are the strong foundations? Mother and father, yes, the parents. Better girl, better boy, better what? And better world. Mother and father as their guiding lights. You believe that? Yes. Yes, yes. Mothers and fathers are the guiding lights. And if we have parents playing their role, it will definitely result in better boy, better girl, better child, better world. Yes? Pick up yourselves again. Okay, so we thank the Monroe Primary and the teachers. We thank you very much. And the musical accompaniment on keyboard, thank you, sir. So we move now to the authors, discussion panel 1. And I want to invite Dr. Lloyd George. Yes, Dr. George. Okay, I'm putting faces to names. Take up your seat, Dr. George. Dr. Zoya Pinkett-Clark. Good. Miss Natricia White-Lothian. Sitting so quietly all the way back down, but we see her now. And Mr. Ron, is it Ronseal Brooks? Ronsell, okay, so it's C-E-L-L. I don't know why I saw an I. Okay, great. So y'all are going to join. Okay, so I will stand here, I suppose, and the microphone will just pass around. So this is the authors discussion panel. And so let's talk a little bit about your own. Let's talk a little bit about your contribution. So each of you, in a few words, yes, because we don't have a whole lot of time. Can you give us the title of your chapter and give a very brief summary? And I would venture to add as well, whatever struck you. You know, sometimes you set off doing some bit of work and something unexpected is found. Yes. So, starting off, who should I start with? Dr. George. So, Dr. George, yes, in order. Then Dr. Clark, and Dr. White, and Miss White Lothian, and Mr. Bruce, in that order.
Thank you so much, and good afternoon to everybody. I'm using my book for the title. It's a little long, and I'm getting older. So my chapter is a conceptual framework for involving parents in improving mathematics learning outcomes, changing mindsets, conversations, and perceptions. And we heard the word mathematics, and I saw some eyes glaze over. And therefore, as we wrote this conceptual chapter, we thought it important for it to be realistic. So it involved not just parents talking and involving themselves with their kids, but also reflecting on their own past and their own experience in mathematics and how it could impact their own children and how they are enacting and engaging with the subject with the child. So, in brief.
Good afternoon, everyone. The title of the chapter is Parental Involvement and Academic Success at the Early Childhood Level. And the first author is Danielle Campbell. Danielle is not here. She's hopefully joining us online, and myself. And we were guided by the research question. Well, the purpose of the chapter was really to answer the research question: how do parents describe the importance of parental involvement in the academic achievement of children at the early childhood level? So we had interviewed with 10 parents, and we asked them questions about what and why and how were they impacted as parents and by the social conditions they experienced, and how that played out in their parental involvement with their child's life. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Well, the title of the chapter that I co-authored with Dr. Ains Brown is an investigation into the prevalence, spoken prevalence of parental involvement in a rural high school in Jamaica. What stood out most about this paper is the fact that the parents think that they are involved. And when we looked at the different construct of parental involvement, different research have been conducted over the years. We looked at, for example, communication, helping with homework, decision making. We recognize that many parents, probably 6 out of 10, believe that just talking about school is involvement, and to them, that's enough. It also looked at the level of socioeconomic levels of the persons. And then when we look at the overall context of parental involvement to now tied to family engagement based on the research, even though it was just done in one school. So we're not really generalizing it. It's just a snapshot, all right? We recognize that some of these children, they were actually being parented by others, the uncles and the aunts and so forth. And so moving away from the construct of just parental involvement to include biological parent is very important, because now we're looking at the entire family dynamics and family engagement as a whole. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. The chapter is actually chapter 2. It is titled Improving Parental Involvement for Students' Success, outlining a framework for non-traditional high schools in Jamaica. Essentially, it focuses on 2 main aspects of parental involvement, particularly communicating and volunteering. Communicating is very critical, especially the communication between home and school and home. As it relates to volunteering, it outlines how by volunteering it can build a relationship, a bond, a trust between parents and the school. It's also instructive how socioeconomic status play a critical role in this kind of involvement that we expect from our parents. Within the traditional space, what was found, first of all, is a conceptual paper, so we didn't actually go out into the field. We use literature and the context in which we operate. And what it showed was that the traditional space, because of the mix of parents that they have, their level of parental involvement is great than the non-traditional space, which is mainly low socioeconomic parents. And that, in essence, from the basis on which this paper was developed.
Thank you. I see Professor Cohen-Bird, Dean of the Faculty of Humanities and Education, walking in. Welcome, Professor Cohen-Bird. At some point, I will invite you to say a few words, but we're currently going through panel 1, which is a small discussion with the chapter authors. So we heard of Dr. George, you spoke about math outcomes, and Dr. King and Clark, you focus on the early childhood level, and Ms. White Lothian, you focus on a rural high school, and Mr. Brooks, the non-traditional high school, and the issue of volunteering, and what that did for parental engagement with the school and so on. And of course, you're highlighting how important socioeconomic status is, very important. So I want to ask you all the next question. What are 2 to 3 ways in which your chapter contributes to the research on parental involvement, family engagement in Jamaica? One.
Thank you. Just off the bat, so the subject that our chapter focuses on, which is mathematics, we don't see a lot of research on mathematics and parental involvement, not only in Jamaica, but the Caribbean. So this conceptual paper was able to fill that particular gap in the literature. And it's an important gap because we are seeing from early childhood, there are gaps when kids come to school at grade 1. So therefore, our chapter tried to level the playing field in terms of SES. In terms of no matter what type of home the parents came from, the child came from, you can have a conversation with your child. And for us, exactly. And for us, it was important to fill that gap where it was what we are asking parents to do was actually realistic. And they were capable, they felt they were capable to do it. And we find that a lot of research, it focuses on, very high-falutin things that the average Jamaican family or the average Caribbean family, they can't get access to it. So for us, that was a major contribution. And also we use the Jamaican dialect in terms of how we communicated. And clearly I had to learn that, which was very exciting. But even more so, not just the subject, not just the language, not just the content, but the reflection of people's experience with math. That is an important discussion that we often don't look at because there's a lot of trauma associated with mathematics for many people. So we're asking, so not to be long-winded, we are not just asking the parents to engage with their children, but to first engage with their own reflective experience of the subject, how it has colored their own view, and then how can it stimulate the conversations honestly.
Thanks a lot.
Well, our chapter, Daniel and I, the findings were very interesting. One is that we don't have a lot of research about parental involvement at the early childhood level. We tend to focus a lot on primary and secondary levels, and so there's very little focus on the early childhood level. So I think that's one of the very important things. The second thing is that it highlights many assumptions are made. We have many assumptions about why parents are not involved. And we have assumptions about what will enable parents to become involved. But we have never really fully understood or looked at it from the parents' perspective. And sometimes parents don't feel confident enough to engage with, and so they lean on the expertise of the teacher. And then teachers then believe that parents are not involved. So it's looking at it like that. So it's just what it means is just as Mr. Brooks shared it, looking at it from the side of the parents and the side of the teacher to get a sense of what parents involvement is, because it is a relationship in and of itself.
Thank you. So there are many research that has been conducted on parental involvement, especially at the primary school level. There are research that have been conducted at the high school level, but there are few that has been conducted in a particular context, for example, at a rural high school in Jamaica. And so I believe that this chapter adds to the body of existing research, and it provides what we call contextually relevant concept that we can actually apply to our local situation. And so, in addition to that, the research would allow us to be more creative in terms of trying to find ways and means to consistently engage the parents, because we have found that just by observation, you see parents taking small children to school, for example, grade 1, they're all excited. In the high schools, they're all excited at grade 7. Registration, we see them 2 times, registration and graduation. So registration is the big thing, graduation is the other big thing. In between, right? So we need to work on how do we consistently engage them so that they can add value to their children, because they are really, really important in this multi-faceted mix. Thank you.
Again, the contribution of this chapter is really to broaden the available pool of literature in the Jamaican and by extension the Caribbean context, since most of the writings on parental involvement is in the North American context. And 2, it sets out to provide a greater insight into the gaps, especially the use of technology in the communication aspect of the parental involvement. And it is worthy to note that at the time that this paper was done, we were talking about moving away from circulars that persons were used to send out and to get parents coming out, to using WhatsApp messages, social media, and all of that. And strange enough, when COVID came in, those are some of the same things that we're using to engage parents. So those are 2 of the major contributions that we have.
It's slightly controversial. I have a colleague close to me in my office who has a grade 1 student, and the amount of work that is required of a grade 1 child is 6 blows the mind. And every time she shares with me, I have to say to her, can you imagine the homes where they don't even have quarter the resources that you have? They just give up. Give up. Have you all at all addressed it? It is, I think this is something, I mean, maybe in your next, bodies too, you have to look at this. But I am just saying that this is a 6-year-old. The expectation yesterday, colleague was sharing with me that test begins on Monday, right? And the things that the poor child needs to have done settled, and her anxiety, and this 4-6-year-old anxiety, I think, in terms of the parental involvement, if you're not careful, if you are demanding so much at such an early stage, I think we may end up turning off parents. And it requires a lot based on what, based on what she has shared. I just want to say, Dr. George, I was struck by what you said about causing parents to reflect on their own experience with mathematics. And I feel maybe all of us, maybe need to do that kind of reflection, because for some of it, the experience with math was that you didn't have a good teacher. You got on the links. So when you have to now help the child, it's like Lord Jesus, and so on. So maybe if we exercise ourselves, some of the parents, maybe need to exercise from that traumatic experience with mathematics, it might lead to a far more positive engagement around the subject and helping the child. So that was quite important. Dr. King-Clark, you said not much research has been done on parental involvement at the early childhood level. And the issue of parental confidence to engage was an important issue. And just like what, so I'm going back now. I mean, a parent who doesn't have many resources and has to provide so many things to help a grade 1 child. And let's say you have 2 other children, one maybe grade 4, preparing for the PEP, and maybe a toddler or so. I mean, who you think is going to get more of your attention, etc. And also the kind of confidence that would be exhibited or lack thereof. And then this is why European spoke of the consistent engagement, the issue of not engaging, I suppose, consistently. But earlier, I think there was mention of the construct of parental involvement, what that actually means. As children get older, parents determine what their level of engagement is going to be. And sometimes the very children push you away. A boy who is adolescent, he doesn't want you in school, up and down the place, he doesn't want you, he's adolescent, you are up the road in his masculinity. If you are in there all the time, talking with his teacher and that kind of thing. So there are those issues. And I think I read one of the chapters, I think it was maybe Saran Stewart's chapter, where she actually identified the issue of adolescence and how that interferes with the construct or maybe the consistent engagement. And then of course, Mr. Brooks, you spoke about the context and gaps in communication. The very thing that we were pushing aside, we have had to embrace. Thank you. So I'm going to open the floor to questions from the audience. Any questions from any of you? I'll take maybe one round of questions in the interest of time. Any further questions you want to ask any of these esteemed authors who have so eloquently explained what they have done? Come on, ask them a question. Expose them. So, Dr. George, what accent is that title? St. Lucia?
Close.
Dominica?
That's it.
One of those.
Good job.
Yes. Anything that you did in your work could be translated to Dominica?
Definitely, and that's the power of the chapter. Yes, even if it's a conceptual paper, as Kadina and I, we sat and thought about this. Everybody who knows me knows I go beyond Jamaica, must be the Caribbean, must be able to speak to parents. And by the way, I've been just an academic for a short time. So in my hat of being a principal, I have been studying parental involvement for a long time. So for me, as I thought about and we thought about the chapter, it had to be applicable. So what you said in terms of, I'm sure people are listening and saying, oh, here they go again. They want me to come to the school. They want me to build a house. They want me to do this. And it's like, you know, for whom? So it was so powerful what you mentioned. And we as authors, you know, really contemplated that and tried to be as applicable as possible.
I want to say that I see Dr. Williamson's hand, but I want to say that sometimes I used to be so mad with the teachers to say, after I get home from a full day of work, a child is waiting with an impossible set of homework, with the deadline being impossible. I mean, I used to walk into when the children were in prep school and be mad at the teacher and say, no, I'm not mad at you. But how dare you send home this kind of thing with this impossible deadline? Do you really expect a child to be able to do this work that you're sent? It's the parents' work. So there are all of these issues that affect parental engagement and family involvement. Over to you, Dr. Williams. You have a question. Yeah.
I just want to know, when we talk about parental involvement, what did you find in terms of, was it just physical involvement or involvement from a distance? I know I'm asking this. Some years ago, we launched the QEC communication, and I was trying to get some information on parental involvement. And one of my principles was saying, because I had a certain mindset as to what parental involvement really is. And she calmly pointed out to me that many times she does not see some parents, but those are the ones who are more involved in the lives of their children. So I'm asking, she can't only think because they or
I would say for our chapter, Daniel and I, we found that it was parental involvement in all facets, not just physical. Though many parents believe that once they have contributed to the uniforms and books and everything else, that that parental involvement. But there are other parents who believe that there needs to be the kind of emotional support for children. And then the big one, just as Dr. Gitt was talking about, which is in terms of being able to support the child, not just providing physical resources, but to support in terms of instruction and learning and bringing what is done in school and bringing that home so that they can support them. And that is one of the major hurdles for children. But just as she said, grade 1, and you have parents who are struggling with the workload, struggling with the content. And so that separates, that adds to the separation of home from school. And so we give the presumption, or some parents will therefore say, I'm leaving it to the teacher. So I will be involved in this way, but not in that way, because I can't manage it.
You find it to be mathematics, because we know it's a problem. So if I can't manage it as a parent, you find a way to somebody else to be there. I can't do it. So can you have my child to okay, that's my or it was just focusing on a game.
All right, as you know, for a conceptual chapter, we would have to do extensive literature review. And Saran Stewart, in her 2013 thesis, speaks about the prevalence of extra lessons from as early as the primary school level for all subjects and for math in particular. So we know parents outsource their involvement, and rightly so, because if I can't add 2 + 2, what am I going to say to the child? So as we looked at the literature, we had Holloway as well, saying that parents are saying, I can't manage math. I'm not interested in managing math because I don't like it either. and being very realistic, our chapter addressed that head on. Doesn't make sense trying to force a parent to do what they can't do and what they are able to do.
What I found was that the support doesn't have to be physical. The parents were able to provide, for example, resources that could add to whatever activities that the school are coming to what we're doing, that support the interest of the school, that could enhance student success, then that was good enough. But it also pointed to the impact that the physical presence had within the space.
Let me add as well. So the parents, based on the ones that we surveyed, they believe that they were involved, just like talking with the students, their children, about homework or about school. But the research shows that 3 in 10 attends PT. So they are not very present physically, right? And they also blame the school because 6 in 10 believe that the school is not supporting them to support their children. So, right, so that is really interesting.
We love to get that part.
Because of the time that the PTA meetings are held.
A lot of factors.
But I can see where some PTAs are in the morning, some are at 7 p.m., some are at 5 p.m. So, I mean,
A lot of factors would contribute to their attending and attending, but this is very, very, very eye-opening to see that they believe that the school is not supporting them to support their children. But they believe just by talking about school with their children, they are involved.
Parents, there's parental involvement, and parents believe they're involved in their child's life. And there's school involvement and that is what many teachers are looking for, school involvement. So you have parental involvement with the child, and then you have parents involvement in the school. And so there is that dynamic as well.
And I suppose there's a difference between showing interest and parental involvement. So I suppose maybe what is Mrs. White raised might be more showing interest if you're talking to them about, but a parent may think that that's involvement. Remember that you studied a rural high school, and there are issues of poverty and low socioeconomic status there. So of course, if I show interest, I'm involved. And I can't blame a parent for thinking like that. Yes, if I don't have all of the resources, but I show interest. And interest is important for also sustaining your child's, there are a few, you can see that there are a few, I would say, things that can be contested. I like this area. It's throwing up all kinds of other areas for additional work. And I believe you all will need a phase 2, volume 2. So come on, editors and authors. I think a volume 2 is needed. Any other question? Any burning question? No? Okay, so I can move it along. Let me just thank all of the authors on the first panel. Thank you very much. And thank you, audience, for being the very good audience that you were. Dean Cohenberg, may I invite you, before I invite Dr. Kristen Rainville, who I believe is online. Is she online? Let me acknowledge the online colleagues. Who is online? Dr. Rainville, Dr. Saran Stewart is also online. Dr. Keon Morgan. There are quite a few persons. Okay, there are six persons on the YouTube. So let me just acknowledge all who are joining us via YouTube and who are generally online. So at this point, before I invite Dr. Rainville to actually deliver the review of the book, to ask Dean Cohenberg to bring a few words of greeting.
Well, I'm supposed to welcome you today. As being a faculty of humanities in education, but I'm also here as an admirer of the work that is carried out in the School of Education. And the word that really comes to mind for me when I look at the work that is done in the School of Education is empowerment. During the pandemic, School of Education reached out to teachers across the Caribbean region to empower them to develop strategies for engaging their students online. Every year, the School of Education organizes workshops that empower teachers, whether they're working at the early childhood level, primary level, or secondary level. I was just looking again at the workshop series that you had on World Teachers Day last year, and another workshop series that was organized on World Teachers Day this year in October. Recently, School of Education collaborated with the Faculty of Science and Technology to introduce teachers to the use of artificial intelligence in their classrooms. This is all about empowerment. Also recently, the school launched a research project empowering early childhood educators to be researchers in their own classrooms. To me, a really game-changing type of project. And here we are turning our attention to the empowerment of parents. How important is that? And especially because so many parents are really disempowered when it comes to the education that they themselves had to what degree they had it, and then having to support their children and trying to believe that their children may be able to profit from education in ways that they themselves did not. So this is very, very important work, and I hope that it will really lead to tangible outcomes, to change, to opportunities for change. And as the Americans say, this must be the start of something bigger. So I congratulate the editors, Dr. Saran Stewart, Dr. Sharline, and Dr. Yewande Lewis-Fokum. Congratulations on this stellar work. And I look forward to seeing much more of this. And so welcome to the Faculty of Humanities and Education, and enjoy the rest of the work.
Thank you very much, Dean Gordon. We do feel at home. And I'm happy to know that from the Faculty of Social Sciences, I'm able to participate. Lots of synergies there. I was informed that Dr. Rainfield's book review has been pre-recorded. And so while she is live and online, she would prefer for the pre-recorded review of the book to be played. So we would ask that it now be queued up.
Honorable guests, esteemed colleagues, educators, editors, authors, and families, thank you so much for this gracious invitation. What a wonderful gift this book is, especially during the 75th anniversary of the University of the West Indies. Investigating parent involvement and family engagement in Jamaica. I am grateful for this opportunity to read this text, to think alongside both the authors and those of you gathered here today in both celebration and discussion for the betterment of schools, communities, and families. I have traveled to Jamaica a half a dozen times. I fell in love with the country, the people, the culture, the landscape, and of course the food during my first visit, and kept returning thereafter each year for over a decade. My husband and I became close friends with many, including Evan and Pauline, who invited us to their home several times in Lucy to explore and share meals. On our second visit, we helped build a small addition to their home. But as an outsider, I'm only one reader and may not fully realize the context, and I may make some missteps in some of my comments. So I ask for your grace and patience. I'm reading and responding this collective research as a mother, a community member, an educator, leader, and a researcher who was born and raised in the United States. Hi, everybody. Sorry about that. I'm just queuing up my PowerPoint, and if I can have screen sharing permissions, that would be great. Honorable guests, esteemed colleagues, I've traveled to honorable guests, esteemed colleagues, educators, editors, authors, and families. Thank you so much for this gracious invitation. What a wonderful gift this book is, especially during the 75th anniversary of the University of the West Indies. There's much to be celebrated this evening, most especially these 17 authors whose collective work is represented in the 9 chapters investigating parent involvement and family engagement in Jamaica. I am grateful for this opportunity to read this text, to think alongside both the authors and those of you gathered here today in both celebration and discussion for the betterment of schools, communities, and families. I've traveled to Jamaica a half a dozen times. I fell in love with the country, the people, the culture, the landscape, and of course the food during my first visit, and kept returning thereafter each year for over a decade. My husband and I became close friends with many, including Evan and Pauline, who invited us to their home several times in Lucy to explore and share meals. On our second visit, we helped build a small addition to their home. My husband planned and hosted a fundraiser for them when their home was damaged by Hurricane Ivan, and traveled to help the work of cleaning and rebuilding. They, alongside 100 of our friends and family, celebrated our marriage in a grill. But as an outsider, I'm only one reader and may not fully realize the context, and I may make some missteps in some of my comments. So I ask for your grace and patience. I'm reading and responding this collective research as a mother, a community member, an educator, leader, and a researcher who was born and raised in the United States, raised in a privileged upbringing, both by virtue of the color of my skin, but also because of the status of my family. My father was a physician and my mother a stay-at-home mom. Although I've faced challenges in my life along my journey, none of them can compare to the challenges faced by those of us who continue to be marginalized or oppressed because of who we are and where we are located, because of our skin tone or our language, our socioeconomic status, our nation of origin, or our ability, and so on. The time for changing has long passed. We must work together, informed by this research and the stories of our communities, to uplift and reconnect with our families, reconnect with our communities, and re-engage and reimagine our work together in schools and communities. The urgency of this situation is not lost on me as a reader, and more importantly, as a mother. My hope for this session is to highlight some of the important work this collective research has accomplished and raise some points of discussion. I'd also like to share some questions that I have for the future as we work together to impact the lives and future of the bold, beautiful, and brilliant youth of Jamaica. I want to share with you some of my assumptions as a reader. Every family wants their child or children to be successful. Every family believes that school and education is important. Families want to partner with schools. Educators want to partner with families. The Ministry of Education wants to support schools and families in bridging home and school. The educational success of an individual uplifts the whole community. We are all impacted by an individual's success. The 2021 report entitled The Reform of Education, put out by the Jamaican Education Transformation Committee, outlined a bold vision for the future that was situated in some hard realities about the current challenges the education system is facing in Jamaica. We know that parental involvement is crucial and will continue to be crucial in the implementation of the recommendations outlined in this report. The contributions of the authors of Each One Teach One help us to understand the why of this disconnect with parents and guide us towards a future in line with the ambitious goals set out by this commission. While the authors of individual chapters included theoretical and conceptual frameworks for their research, there is a collective framing or a set of beliefs that is threaded through this text. First, parenting or child rearing is culture specific. And though the international and Jamaican literature point to specific ways in which parents and family engagement is a key component of school effectiveness, much of the work up to this point has been informed or based on a model from the UK and North America. The authors contend that parents want to participate in their child's education. And through these studies, the editors and authors hope to close the cultural and contextual gap in the literature and add to the critical research in this field that will help all of us understand the next steps needed for research, as well as how to create engaging solutions for the future. As you will hear from the authors and editors tonight, there are 3 sections of the text. Section 1 focuses on synthesizing and critically analyzing current literature and the Caribbeanized model that reflects the family structures, cultures, strengths, and challenges in a post-colonial context. Section 2 includes studies that look at family engagement in early childhood, primary, and special education contexts. These studies highlight the impact of parental involvement on the social and cognitive development of children. And the 3rd section focuses on parent involvement at the secondary level and the unique challenges faced within that context. While each of the chapters and research studies make important contributions to help us to understand the state of parental involvement and family engagement in Jamaica's education system, I wanted to take the opportunity to present 2 of the figures from the text and talk through them and why I think that they're so vitally important in shaping our future conversations. Doctors Lewis-Fokum and Morgan remind readers that the issue of family engagement in a post-colonial society is complex and multifaceted. They caution us that there is no step-by-step prescriptive method to address it. Rather, they offer us a framework of family engagement to help guide us as we approach this work in a collaborative and recursive manner. This model helps us to look at factors influencing family engagement, pushes us to think about forms of family engagement from an asset lens, and supports us as we reimagine a co-construction of family engagement across all of the sectors of schooling, which ultimately, right, will lead us to better outcomes for families, communities, schools, and districts. This framework is actionable and offers a renewed perspective to investigate family engagement with the underlying goal of empowerment and transformation. In the chapter by Haynes and George, they give us an example of how frameworks can be redefined and relabeled for the Jamaican context. They take two aspects of Epstein's model of parental involvement, which was designed in the United States, and they have relabeled it in a way that is more culturally specific and in turn more accessible and motivating for families. The authors argue that the use of Jamaican Creole in the framework allows parents to see their dialect in written form, which makes the material more accessible, more connected, and bolsters cultural pride, self-love, and acceptance. It's hoped that reframing models like this will motivate teachers and other stakeholders to organize programs around this uniquely Jamaican framework. In addition, multiple chapters discuss harnessing the power of technology to engage parents by including things like using the WhatsApp groups to connect families. In addition, changing negative personal mindsets, conversations, and perceptions about not only mathematics, which this chapter was focused on, but other subject areas or schooling in general is difficult, but it's an incredibly impactful shift. Perceptions, beliefs, and attitudes that we hold about a child's learning or about ourself and our education journey can be shifted. I wonder how we can lean on Zaretta Hammond's work on culturally responsive teaching in the brain to help us shift these mindsets, shift the mindsets of our youth, our families and parents, and also of ourselves. Can we together consider strategies to help shift the mindsets of all stakeholders to better help students to see and create a counter narrative about their identity as learners, to create a counter narrative for parents as an important part of the system? Can we use images and quotes in poetry and self-talk to help reimagine what is possible? Can we lean on Louise Moll's work on funds of knowledge that helps us to understand that families possess knowledge and skills in their homes, in their communities, that is historically accumulated and culturally developed, and that is an asset to our classrooms? By involving both the school and the community, parents can be interactive with their children. They can meet and be more sensitive to their emotional and intellectual needs. They can have a better understanding of the teacher's role in the curriculum. We know that they will have higher opinions and feel more committed to their children's school. In culturally responsive teaching, relationships are as important as the curriculum. In collective community-based culture, relationships are the foundation of all social, political, and cognitive endeavors. It is the trust between teachers and families that we need to continue to build. Neuroscience has shown us that the brain feels safest when we are connected to others. The research presented in Each One, Teach One dovetails so beautifully with the Minister of Education's vision for parenting. The Division of School Services and the National Parenting Support Commission have clear goals that are ambitious, but that give us strategies, really specific strategies that have already started to roll out with parent mentors, support from guidance counselors, social workers, that this work is going to be transformative for the youth and families of Jamaica. It is no coincidence that this book and this celebration of this launch is happening during the celebration of Parent Month. Thank you so much for this invitation. I am so grateful to be here tonight. Thank you for this incredible text, for this incredible research. Thank you for your investment in the parents, families, and communities of Jamaica, and for the youth who I have no doubt will not only make an impact in their communities, but will make a global impact that I will feel here in Connecticut in the United States. I look forward to continuing this discussion with you. Thank you, everyone. If there's any questions or thoughts, I know I was over time, but I am here. I appreciate you being here tonight with us.
Okay, so let me thank you again, Dr. Rainfield, for your beautiful review of each one, and to say that all of us gathered here in the multifunctional room on the Board campus were heartened by the very positive review which you gave the book. I definitely see volume 2, the more I hear it. I hope you're taking notes, all of you editors and authors, because there are things that need further interrogation. There are some, what's the word is that? Construct, how we reconstruct and think about parental involvement, etc. So thank you very much. Let me tell you, colleagues, Dr. Rainfield is the Director of Literacy Programs of the Isabel Parental College of Education and Human Development at Sacred Heart University. Thank you again. And let me ask if there's anyone in the audience who would like to perhaps ask a question, make a comment, having heard Dr. Rainfield's review. Anyone? Any takers? Dr. Rainfield, I want to say that I agree with all of the assumptions that you made as you begun to review the book. I think every parent wants well for their children. I think the Ministry of Education means well. I think schools want parental involvement, etc., etc. So I think your assumptions were spot on. Also, it is true that parenting and child rearing is culture specific, and that's very important. And then something you said towards the end, which was treating or viewing parents as having assets, irrespective of the socioeconomic status or class that they come from. Every parent brings something to the table. And I think more of that, if more of that were adopted, I think we might also see more involvement, so there's definitely that truth. Thank you again.
Thank you so much for the invitation.
So
next time I want to come in person though.
Yeah. So I want us to move along to the editor's discussion, panel 2. So let me invite, I see 2 of the editors here. Dr. Sharline is here, and Dr. Yewande Lewis-Fokum, and Dr. Saran Stewart is online. Saran, where are you? Is that you? Yes, I see you.
Yes.
It's me, live and in color. So sorry to not be home though, truly.
Yes, thank you. So, I have a few questions, and instructed by Dr. Lewis-Fokum, I will just ask all of my questions in one, and then you will answer them. Yes? So, listen very carefully. So tell us a little bit about what gave rise to this book project, all three of you. Yes, that's one. How was that experience for you? What were the eye-opening moments and the moments of despair, perhaps? And what did your work reveal and highlight? Because I know that you all were authors of and co-authors of individual chapters. What did your own work reveal and highlight? So did you hear all of my questions? Yes? Thank you. So I will just hand straight over to Dr. Lewis-Fokum, followed by Dr. Cole, and then to you, Dr. Stewart.
No? Yes, okay. So this book emerged as a result of a corridor conversation with Dr. Stewart. So we have our office here, it's right, we're right beside each other, which was here. And for a number of years, we kept getting students, I had students, master's projects. They always wanted to do parental involvement. And I would have questions, and I, knock on Saran's door and ask her, what do you think about this? Any, type of question that I can figure out on my own. And I think, Saran, I'm going to hand over to you because you had a slightly different experience that was happening simultaneously as I was asking you questions about my students' work.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. So we had the applied research and education in which Dr. Cole teaches in, and a number of our students were thinking through this. In particular, one of them that is our co-author and is currently online, Natalia Wright. It happened that, the students always ask every single year, what are the effects, the impact of parental involvement on student success? So in doing the research, we kept on seeing much work being through North American context. And given our context, we realized that this was not culturally relevant or contextually appropriate for our students and our parents, most of which we have expanded this work through chapter 1 with family engagement. And so in working with Sharline and in hearing many of those corridor coffee conversations in particular, we brainstormed and thought of, boy, Sharline, you're the one with the dissertation on this work, so you should really come involved with this. So I'll pass it over to Dr. Cole.
Tell us now, Dr. Cole, because you have dissertation work on this as well.
Yes, good evening, everyone. So started out for me, my research as a classroom teacher, a guidance counselor, a vice principal.
Yeah.
Started out there. There were these students on there trying to involved by so very I think they need to do something in this year. So this was going to be one of the research, and I want to think about and especially because I realized that here was not research. That's yeah. And that discussion, of course, the type you do some involvement, and of course already here when I was doing mine, and I was good start. And then that discussion again. Every year in applying, of course, project, students are from different cross-section, different areas. Parents actually, don't we have a lot of circle here? It was, and I think one of the strengths of the book is that it's a collaborative effort with our graduate students. So it actually finally converted those master's thesis projects into book chapters. So almost every chapter is with the graduate supervisor and a graduate student. And so that was part of, so it's a collaboration across us as colleagues in our different areas and also with our graduate students. So this is one of the treats and the strengths of the book.
You know, I wanted to ask that question, and I think they need to be applauded. Important highlight of this book. And so the graduate students' confidence is built, and this is how we nurture the younger academics. Thank you. So, remember my next question was, what was the experience?
It was a good experience. It was a good experience. Working with Saran is a fantastic experience. She has a drive that is I don't know what she does it, but Sharline and I are a bit more laid back. And one day she came to us, she went to hear me and said, listen, what are we doing? We didn't do anything in months. And she really put some fire under our tails. And she has experience with, having published other books. And she brought that experience to us. And I can't forget, one of the things that she did was to help us with administrative support through Nadine Brown, who did a lot of the calling, emailing of the different authors, and that was just fantastic, as well as initial editing work by Heather Monroe. So in terms of
and just to include Dr. Shanae Ferguson, who is an author, but also was a former student, a graduate student at the time for the School of Education, and has recently completed her PhD dissertation and is now Dr. Ferguson, so who is also online, by the way.
Welcome to Dr. Ferguson, all online, So notice that corridor conversations can result in books, and there has to be somebody who reads the Riot Act as part of that team who likes fire under every about your own work.
Right.
About your own work.
Right. So in terms of the chapter, I did it with Dr. Keon Morgan, and the Dr. Rangel showed the theoretical model. That really is Dr. Keon Morgan's, it's coming out of her PhD work. And I really do love theory, and I think it's important for us to indigenize our own theoretical framework in looking at parental involvement and family engagement in education. So for me, that's an exciting part of it. And I hope that other graduate students and other persons who use the book will actually look at the model and see what they can tease out in terms of the concepts and theories. So that's what Dr. Randall said. In the model, one of the phrases that keeps coming to mind is the invitation to engage. That it's not just, the family engagement is not just simply having programs, but you're inviting persons, inviting the parents, different family members. So it's not an order, it's an invitation. And I think that wording is shifts the mindset. And then also life circumstances, the time, energy, and health, and different seasons in a parent's life, they contribute differently. I think as schools, we need to be aware of that.
And also for the children, as they engage the parents to engage different.
Right. And I want to add one last thing before I let Saran and Sharline speak, is that this model goes up from kindergarten or basic school straight up to the workforce. So that was something that I think was unique to Keon's work, that you're looking at post-secondary family involvement as well as workforce readiness. So you're not just sending them to school and that's it, you're sending them to school with the purpose of them making positive contributions in the workforce later on.
Thank you. So interesting, I have two chapters in the book. The first chapter with Dr. Anne, she's my mentor. So we looked at parental involvement and
the early childhood literacy, but that students with special needs, in particular the ones who are deaf and and for us, we realize that in the us, the parents in the us, we tend to do a lot of research, but we tend to forget about these persons who are children with special needs. And as a result, we went and we tried to find out from the parents themselves what it means to be involved. But for them, what is involvement? And the experiences were varying, depending on the need of the child. And so for the schools, the school for the blind, you have schools that were residential. So there's some issue with involvement there. They have to be calling often, and the calling is WhatsApp or they can't speak, so that could be a problem. And so it's how the schools sometimes seek to engage the parents. In our discussion, we found out that parents who are involved always look up to the teachers, because sometimes they don't even know how to be involved, because sometimes they don't know how to deal with the needs of the children. And as a result, they really are afraid to be involved. I think I spoke to that earlier about things like, and if they don't have the knowledge, the competence, like the capacity to help, it's difficult for them to deal with some of the special needs. And so the parents explain and express that for them, involvement is for them helping over, listening to the teacher, and they depend a lot on the teacher, because for them, they are just learning. And what came out of this paper was that the importance of advocating for parents with children with special needs, helping them to provide support for them to be able to reach their children, because sometimes it's difficult. In particular, the schools of the blind, the parents live all over Jamaica. And it's difficult for them to even afford the same thing about socioeconomic status again. Being able to go to school, living on all of that. And so there are issues with some of the parents, and how is it that able to reach and be able to help their children? So that is the chapter 5. And then chapter 6 looks at just looking at parental involvement, early parental involvement, and its impact on overall student success. And so what this research, what I did was to, using the data from the cases, then I went back into some other schools to collect their grade 4 literacy and literacy to see if early parental involvement had any impact on their overall success. And it's so interesting that if you look at the math scores back then, though, it was high at grade 1. The score went up. So yes, they see what that's important, but again, knowledge about the content, all of that will impact their involvement. And so the importance of ensuring that from day 1, we start to import their content. And as they transition from grades 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, to import the parents, provide them with support so they can have their children. Yeah.
Thank you. Dr. Stewart?
I'll be quick because I know we're on time. So this is a co-authored chapter, like all the other chapters, with the exception of chapter 6, with both Natalia Wright as the lead for this chapter, as well as Dr. Ferguson. The real importance about this chapter is that this takes Epstein's original 1995 instrument that has both a parental instrument as well as a student level survey, and completely piloted it here and got significant results for a culturally contextual and adaptable survey for our context. So we didn't just copy and paste the Epstein's work into the Jamaican context. There was really significant amount of piloting and actually repiloting. So there were 2 pilot studies that were conducted, and then that instrument is what was reported. So there is a double instrument that was done before and prior to make sure that the constructs were valid and reliable, right? That's really important in our Jamaican context, not to just import things that do not suit our children and our people overall. So this is now at the adolescent level, specifically in an urban high school in which Ms. Wright was a teacher. Now she's away. A couple of our authors actually throughout this process process have left us. But as you saw, some incredible authors who are principals of schools are still there. So it's incredible to hear them today talk about their research and their work. This study had a sample of over 193 persons, which included 125 students and 68 parents. And I'm going to read just the key findings because this is one of our statistical quantitative research chapters, which at the secondary level, there was found a tension for parents and guardians between being greatly involved and allowing the adolescents greater autonomy. We found that parents and guardians who are involved in their children's lives are at an advantage and tend to develop important life skills, but also perform academically better at school. The parent survey in particular had some significant statistical correlations and multilinear regression analysis with two construct variables. One was communication and the other was learning at home. Both were found to have significant impact to account for the students' reported academic performance. And so if I think through what is impactful in that work is really looking at how communication between parents and school, that is both at the school administrative level as well as a teacher level, is critical for student success. And then what we're not thinking through, which I think COVID pressed us on to think more at, is what kind of learning is taking place at home, right? And that was also a significant variable for academic performance.
So we'll ask you for a few seconds. Can you go back over what you found? The first, okay, thank you. But as you spoke, I just kept thinking about Dr. George's presentation about the math. And just the fact that some of us have to exercise or we exercise, and so on.
Right, but parental involvement, Dr. Rick, is just real quick. I want you to understand that sometimes the parental involvement translated, and Dr. George and I also had many corridor talks. She was right in front of me. I'm so happy that that's one of our kind of hallmark chapters in the book as well. Really meant, does the parent stay up with the child until 2 a.m. in the morning to finish their work? That was involvement as well. And not just a parent. Remember in that first chapter, we have parents and guardians that can exist in the form of the adult or as someone senior to them in the household that takes an interest in their work. So it could be an older cousin, an older sibling, right? But somebody who literally them don't understand what's happening, like especially in math, right, Dr. George? But they stay up with them, right? They encourage them to complete the work. That we also found was significant.
There's actually an advertisement with a tired mother saying to the son, "You don't finish yet." But I don't remember where it's coming from. I think because it's like mother wants sleep, That's
right.
Yes, so I imagine the extent of parental involvement is quite wide, from showing interest, all the way to staying up the hours of the morning and so on and so forth. Yes. Thank you very much, editors. Let's give them a round of applause. And if there's a burning question anybody has for the editors? Editors, going once? Okay.
These three beautiful young ladies. I know that it is not easy for intellectuals to see things the same way and to work together. And sitting here, I am really reflecting on collaboration. And I have one of my principals who came up with this to commend these circles. And I've been saying in meetings with him that there's a certain song that we sing at school, Jesus is your child. And I've been saying to my principals and others that we need to stop singing this song because there's a line in it that says, "You in your small corner, and I know." So sitting here and listening to all the things that are going on, I have even more empowered to go back to my people to say, look here, if we don't collaborate, we have nowhere going. And this work, the time I think about it, I say to myself, maybe I should get the university, but for the time being, I feel the ministry, Dr. Rainbow. You know, but I like this kind of work because it makes our work, our development as a country, a little bit more straightforward than the country being in darkness and wondering what is happening. So the scholarly work, I really appreciate it, and I take back good words to do with history. Yeah, and see what we can do from our end, because the weakest link in the education system right now is from parents. And whatever we can do to help, I think the entire country will be gracious. If we don't attack back in, then we have nowhere going as a country. And just to say, I'm on team Sharline Code.
You are on
Team Sharline Code. She has been as much strength to me. I've been her ego. She has been my mentor when I was studying. Even though I was her ego, she was my mentor. So I'm on her team. So that's why I'm here to celebrate her.
Yes, yes.
Congratulations.
Yes, but thank you very much for that comment, which I think is important, that working together. And the comment which you went on further to speak in terms of everybody working from their particular areas coming together to work. And I think Dr. Rayville's point about seeing everybody as really assets, irrespective of where you are in terms of the totem pole or the, the ladder. Having assets, having something positive to bring is important, and therefore inviting family members and parents to engage is very important. And if we acknowledge that we all have some asset or assets, then our invitation or the invitation to engage should be that much easier to accept. Thank you very much again to all of you. Thank you. You may remain where you are. At this time, there will be the presentation of books. And I'm just getting my list here. There will be presentations to the Yewande Main Library. And I see Ms. Sadna here, the systems librarian, and she's representing Dr. Paulette Carr, campus librarian. May I invite Ms. Sadna, who is likely to present one of the, or maybe both of you, since you are both here physically. So editors Lewis-Fokum and Paul are presenting to the main library. And the main library's representative, Ms. Sadler, will present, will accept on behalf of the library. Dr. Stewart, you're missing out because you're not here.
I am. I was in Singapore earlier this week, so I kind of mash up, I'm not gonna lie, but
we understand. We understand. The second presentation will be made to the National Library of Jamaica, and its representative is Keisha Miles, Manager of Collections Development, will accept on behalf of the National Library of Jamaica. Let's welcome her. Which one of the ground? And we have presentation to the Jamaica Library Service. And Ms. Mardine Carr, who is Director of Public Library Network, will receive on behalf of the Jamaica Library Service. I am told that also in attendance are Ms. Dion Barnett, Senior Librarian. Are you there? Yes. And Ms. Martha Jack, who greeted me so wonderfully. That's where you are, acting Senior Librarian. So, Ms. Carr. Oh, I'm sorry. Is it talking? Yeah. Okay. So the editors are also donating a copy of the book to the National Parent Support Commission, who unfortunately are not represented. Dr. I think it's Dr. I don't remember, Casey Carr, sent her apologies. So the team will ensure that the book is delivered at a later date. So, before I deliver my closing remarks, I will turn over to Dr. Saran Stewart, who I understand has a little treat.
You know, we really do work very well as a team. It really is something to behold, because to do this online like this requires significant communication. I wanted to make sure that a couple of things were acknowledged in gratitude, which gratitude is a must at this point. It takes a lot, and we wrote in the acknowledgement, to bring a thought to manuscript. Each of our colleagues in the School of Education that took on this stalwart project with our very apt former students also took a secondary role, which I think should be noted, but more so applauded. They supported our students in this work and acknowledged them as the first authors for their research. And there was significant support, significant mentorship, and I did not want that to go unnoticed. For those in the room that are my bona fides, like Dr. Therese Ferguson, thank you so much. Dr. Carmel Roof is on sabbatical, but she's another one with Runsell, of course. You have Tashane Haynes Brown, you have Dr. Zoya Kincaid Clark, you have Dr. Lord George, who you heard earlier, of course. You have our beloved Susan Anderson, who is not a student, but a beloved hallmark with Dr. Cole, of course. And so you have 17 authors in this text that was shepherded by ourselves, but really on the backbone of Miss Nadine Brown, who I miss terribly, Dr. Sinead Ferguson, Heather Monroe, and I cannot forget the person who created the beautiful artistry on the front cover, Miss Tashia Young. Please seek her out. Her graphic work is impeccable. So I literally, most of these persons, Claudia Mighty is in the US, and a number of our students today are actually online on YouTube and have stayed with us for the full 2 hours. Those that have migrated and have sought other forms of research and how to propel their wings in this work. So I just wanted to acknowledge them because they made it a point of duty that even if they couldn't show up in person, they have supported us online throughout their various comments. So congratulations to my beloveds, Dr. Cole, Dr. Yewande, Lewis-Fokum. It has been an amazing journey to have seen this project through with both of you.
That's so beautiful. And when your parents say thanks to you and acknowledge your work, it's even more beautiful. So, colleagues, as I give you my closing remarks, what shall I say? I think we have had a treat this afternoon. And so we must congratulate again all the authors and the editors of what I'm treating as volume 1 of Teach One, Teach One. I think we are good. I know that you all sought to close the cultural and contextual gap. I'm quoting from you in the literature about parental involvement and family engagement in children's schooling and education in Jamaica. But it might be important for you to interrogate some of the, I would say some of the findings, particularly about class, and I think a little more about special education, and maybe to test to see whether in other Caribbean jurisdictions, certainly the Eastern Caribbean and elsewhere, some of the very assumptions might still hold, or whether the findings might be slightly different. And so I want to encourage you all to continue this very important work. I think it has been an important addition. Our new principal is very much gung-ho about returning to core and about thought leadership. And we definitely see the thought leadership here in the umpteen chapters. And so, we look forward to additional work in this area on parents and family engagement in children's education. As the education officer, Dr. Williams, has said, parents really are perhaps the weakest link, the strongest link, but at the same time the weakest link. And so we really have to handhold parents. A lot don't necessarily know. We make a point all the time that it doesn't come with a manual. Parenting, there's no manual. And what works for one child doesn't work for the other, doesn't necessarily work for the other. I have 2 children, and the approaches to parenting are vastly different. They are like night and day, and they come from the same household. Yeah, one very diligent and one that took a lot out of both mother and father. Still takes quite a lot, I would say. And the other one very diligent and short-footed and doing what is required to be done, etc. and etc. So we have to acknowledge, as Dr. Rainville said, all of the assumptions that we all want as parents the best for our children. We mean when we want to participate, etc. And we are hoping maybe that we would be invited to engage, recognizing that we bring something to the table, whatever that bring is, whatever that thing is. And I want to go back. I don't know why Dr. George's work still sits with me, the mathematics in particular, because a lot of people are very fearful of mathematics. And I think your chapter, there may be far more work that may be needed just on mathematics, particularly since we are building a STEM. We are a STEM society, and we are hoping that there will be far more interest in science and mathematics and engineering and so on. If people have that fear of math and are not sufficiently reflective of our own experiences with it, then the parents help for the child. You might be just rubbing off all of your negative on the child and preventing their own, I would say, exploration with the subject. So it's very important for us to interrogate each of these chapters. I want to recommend to all of us. I have just read about 5, but I think I'm flipped through some of the others, but I want to, over the holiday, read every chapter and come away that much more, fully appreciative of everything that has been done. I think the encouragement of your graduate students is something that needs to be applauded again. And when I heard Dr. Stewart speak about having them as your first authors. This boosts the confidence of our graduate students. It encourages their own academic, scholarly, exploration, etc. And so, kudos to you. I talked already about volume 2 that's expected. Again, to congratulate authors and editors and the School of Education, Dr. Rainford, because I know that, maybe sometimes when you called on Dr. Lewis-Fokum or Dr. Cole or Dr. Stewart, they might have told you, we're working on this. Could you please ask somebody at the moment? And you have to understand. I know as a head or director how sometimes you have to juggle. And so I thank the School of Education and even the other colleagues who perhaps had to fill in where there was needed. And I want to thank the UE Press. I know that Ms. Randall has left us, but I want to thank the UE Press for taking on the project and for delivering it so wonderfully well. So colleagues, thank you all. I want to thank the retirees who are here. Professor Brian, it's lovely to see you. I have not seen you earlier. Professor Warner Lewis and Professor Lewis, thank you. And Dr. Cole's mom, who is still with us, thank you all, parents, family members. I see Dr. Lewis-Fokum is good. I acknowledge husband, but I did not acknowledge son. I know you might feel a little awkward, but don't worry. That's the kind of engagement I was talking about. Sometimes you can't be up and down in the school, see how he looks, but they're going to get embarrassed. Yes? So, colleagues, thank you very much for what has been a treat. I have a script which I must read. Copies of the book will be on sale as a special launch discount. Do you know what the price is? I wasn't told. What's that?
But I think that beginning tomorrow, 50% sale. Yes. December. Okay.
Okay. Yes. Okay. 50. Right. Yes, thank you. Those here are asked to purchase copies of the book at the back. And you may also visit the UE Press office. So that would be where the discount applies. It would be that you have to go to the press office. And for those of you who joined online, you may purchase the books or copies by visiting the UE Press's website, www.uepress.com. The link will be posted in the chat. I imagine it was already done. Colleagues, the book will make perfect gifts for the holiday season. So if you know you have a colleague in the education field, or Dr. Williams, you might have colleagues at the ministry, you might want to just keep them like yes, and see, chief education officer. Yes, so we can give a copy for the holiday season. Colleagues, all that is left for me to say is have a wonderful rest of the evening. And if I don't see any of you over the holiday season, have a wonderful holiday season. Thank you very much.